We have an election going on in this country, and the fact that not a single person on the panel has talked about anybody in American politics, and not even the President of the United States, who you could argue, from a pure power perspective, could be Person of the Year every year, no matter who is president. What does that say?
I think there's just there's a gridlock in politics that everybody's aware of, and it's very hard to want to honor anyone in a system that's getting so little done. I will say, as a comedy writer, I think the GOP presidential field could be Person of the Year.
Would you have to put them all together to make
Absolutely,
one
just
person?
put them all together, get that wide shot. It's wonderful.
Well, also, in terms of being evil, there's not really that many evil politicians in that there's no real evil plan. There's just a 50-50. We've never been at such a parity.
No plan at all.
There's no plan at all. It's just a question of going into a knife fight and trying to knife the other guy as quickly as you can, get back comfortably, and then make a little PR statement that you won that little battle. So as the system is more evil than any of the evil players, there's no evil guys that are winning, and there's really no good guys that are winning. So the politics guys are just kind of left holding the bag.
And when it comes to the banking industry, I mean, there were so many people who, if you wanted to pick a face, it's really difficult. That's even more difficult, I think, than picking a face for Arab Spring, because so many bankers got very, very wealthy on the backs of poor people, communities of color, women who were going into the housing market for the first time. I mean, it's amazing when you start to look at some of the numbers about how salaries went up, really built on the back of subprime loans that then got sold and collapsed the whole system. And so how do you find that face? Is it that bankers are evil, or is it the system that's evil?
The bankers, no question.
But Grover, can you come in and defend the Republican field?
The two guys you could pick, Freddie
would you
Mac,
pick?
Fannie Mae. If you had to go to individuals.
Okay.
But you got,
They're guys.
I mean, they just got $13 million worth of bonuses for their good work.
Well, I know one CEO got $53 million in compensation at the height of subprime lending. So, you know, it makes that kind of look like small potatoes.
But let's talk about the Republican field for a second, Grover. I mean, they've all, with the exception of John Huntsman, signed your no tax pledge. Somebody has made the suggestion, which I thought was a really interesting one, that Paul Ryan for Person of the Year, who in effect changed the debate in the most macro way about, so it should be cutting the deficit rather than increasing spending in any way. And that's become the tipping point for everything over the past year.
Yeah, and 4 years from now, 2 years from now, you could look back and say that's what changed. When Ryan actually did a budget, I mean, one of the criticisms of the White House is they didn't do a real budget this year. The Democratic Senate hasn't done a budget in 3 years. Ryan actually wrote out a budget that you could look at, read, and score, and that drops spending from what the president planned to do down $6 trillion over the next decade. So it's a real budget, and you can look at it, and it does it by reforming government rather than just slicing it. Let's do everything stupid thing we've been doing and do it 10% less. Let's do things differently to try and make some of it sustainable. So long term, I think Ryan is the change. So that's why I'm not terribly interested in which Republican gets to sign the bills 2 years from now. They'll be signing Ryan's bills, and they can fly in the plane, and that's nice. But they don't get to, they won't be making the interesting decisions.
I think that's
Ryan
true,
has.
because it's becoming clear that Congress, makes the legislation, and at the end, the president can stop it if he wants, but the president can't do much, which has become very clear these last 3 years. Which is why Congress, certainly full of, with the majority that signed this pledge, ultimately, when you don't have the benefit of being able to raise taxes we have this super committee, which has got to work out because they have super in the name. I don't think we're going to have much come back from that either. I think this gridlock will, continue to last. And I do think, you hear Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac a lot, but I do think that's disingenuous. And the banks, the banks had a far higher amount of their subprime mortgages default than Fannie and Freddie, and it just gets said so much. Like, you hear that 47% of Americans don't pay taxes so much that it almost becomes fact when it's not.
What about our
You're
space
such a
program?
serious guy, Seth.
I'm sorry, it's a serious year. It was fun in 2008. We had a lot of laughs.
What about the space program? Oh, I forgot we don't have one.
What?
What about the space program? Oh, I forgot we don't have one.
Which is sad. I mean, Steve Jobs came from a time where you grew up and, you know, I forget if Steve Jobs said it, but like, you know, you came up at a time where there were the Beatles and men walking on the moon. Like, that was a time that was inspiring.
Well, it was also a time in our current issue, which is about economic inequality and the lack of social mobility in America. It was a time, as you saw in Walter's book, that, you know, Steve Jobs had a fantastic public education from all the way up through, you know, going to college and dropping out. I mean, that, you know, you could make the argument that the decline in our education system, you know, that could be the bad guy of the year, as it were. But you know what, just talking about politics, Professor Hill, I just want to put you on the spot for 1 second. I mean, we're right now in the middle of a Republican campaign, and there's a candidate, Herman Cain, who is going through something like what happened to you in 1991. I wonder whether you have any thoughts about how that will affect the campaign, any thoughts in particular about what's happening to Mr. Cain right now.
Do you know I've been for the last few weeks on a book tour?
I'm sorry?
I have no comment on Herman Cain.
It'll help sell your book.
No, it won't. The book is not about Herman Cain. But you know, people think that I follow politics probably, people believe I follow politics more closely than I actually do follow politics. I'll simply say there's some serious issues out there, and we all know what they are. And I think any one of us could speculate about what the outcome would be, but none of us know.
I will say the most surprising thing to me about that whole thing is that anyone in this day and age, in this information age, thinks you can run for president and not have something like that come up. And at least not even have a plan as to how you'll address it when it comes up. I mean, there were settlements made, you know, this is obviously a thing that happened. So whether it happened or not, you know, I think we'll find out more details. But that was, to me, the most shocking thing, which politicians continue to do. They think they can get away with having affairs or having scandals. Like, we live in an information age and a cell phone age, and Steve Jobs has made it a lot harder for people to get away with stuff.
Well, and you could make the argument that, just like we've talked for many, many years, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. It's not the crime, but how you deal with it. I'm not saying he committed a crime, but the fact that you have to deal with things in a crisis, that's the job of being president.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a response, that's...
And people often frame themselves as straight talkers until they have to talk about themselves. Like, you know, that's like the whole Herman Cain campaign is like, I'm different, I talk straight. And then as soon as this came out, he had sort of like 3 different answers in 3 different days.